Hi, we're the Ocean Going Robots ECE Capstone team. Our team consists of Malachi Fisher, Grayson Lewis, Miles Drake, and Samuel Barton. Our project is to develop a system that we can fit onto a Slocum G3 glider that will measure wave swell amplitude, direction, and period as the glider floats on the surface of the ocean while consuming a minimum amount of the glider's battery power.
Our goals from last week were to keep working on our individual blocks, meet with the whole team for a status update, including both the CS teams and the project partners, check in with Don, and honor Martin Luther King Jr.
For the SD card PCB block, I finished the schematic and then ordered the parts and the PCB. Once the parts and the PCB arrived, I assembled them and put them through some testing. I then acquired a 1 gigabyte SD card, and after ensuring that it all worked, I checked the block off. This week, I'm going to begin working on the 3D printed clip that will affix this to the inside wall of the glider. I'll begin working on the SD interface firmware, and I will begin working on my block validation document.
So this past week, I checked off the accelerometer block. That's the top image you see there. I assembled it onto a protoboard, and we tested all of the interfaces with the rest of the system. And we also verified that measurement of critical parameters, so acceleration, the gyroscope, and the magnetometer all worked correctly. This week, I'm going to get started on my next block, which is the serial interface firmware block. In order to get started on that, I'm going to order an RS-232 level shifter, which will allow us to hook up the microcontroller to the serial ports on the Ocean Glider without breaking anything. And then I'm also going to draft the block validation document for that block.
So up to yesterday, I finished working data analysis block, which mainly included the FFTs of the acceleration data coming from the accelerometer, as well as finding the dominant periods of each of those sets of acceleration data. We still need to be able to implement the power and cross-spectral densities, as well as finding the spectral parameters for the final implementation, but that'll be something that we'll be working on later. And for the next upcoming weeks, I'll be starting again on working on the microcontroller block. Primarily this week, I'll be working on trying to figure out ways to program the microcontroller and including connections to all the other working components in the system.
I finished prototyping the buck regulator block with the 3.3 volt output and got that checked off yesterday, and it met all the requirements. It was within the voltage tolerance, and it was able to supply the amount of current that we needed and much more. And then I also started working on the power switching block for turning on and off the power for the SD card and the accelerometer. I made a schematic for that and did some simulations, but I still need to pick out some MOSFETs for it and make the draft block validation and prototype the circuit. We had block check off yesterday. Everyone passed, everyone got their blocks checked off, and it was amazing. We had time to spare.
So for our team meetings, we're going to have a meeting tomorrow at 4 with our project partners and the CS team. And then we also have our, weekly just ECE team meetings. And then not this week, but next week, we'll have a meeting with Dawn to go over the status of our project, progress, and our blocks.
So our goals for the coming weeks are just to start working on our second block and work on those individually. Tomorrow we'll turn in our draft block validation for those. And we want to keep meeting with Don and get help from him. And also next week we'll be sending an update email to the project partners.